Wisdom. What is wisdom and what happens when you don't have it or when you don't have enough of it? Welcome to the reading of Se Coscacuastli Hunahmac, the one vulture, the one sinner. So this trecena, this energy, is related to wisdom. And wisdom is culture. And what is culture? Is a conglomerate of experiences. It is knowledge that has been put into practice, that is empirical knowledge. That means that we know it's true because we have experienced it. And that gives a continuity which transcends a single lifetime. So there's a lineage of knowledge that has become culture, and we can be heirs of that and give that continuity. When we don't have this, we fall into a sort of negativity. We will see many mistakes and faults appear. We will act like non-humans without human empathy. We will act from anger, from ignorance. We will fall into a junk lifestyle. We will be easily sold junk stuff. We will be easily preyed on by the system, by the corporations, which have produced this, right? So we live in a sort of a middle age, and we are bewitched by this. There has been this incredibly big bewitchment of humanity, from which we are robbed of our energy, of our resources, of our autonomy, of our culture, of our knowledge, experience, and wisdom, which then produces the junk I'm talking about. They have imposed the sort of cult of the institution instead of us having real knowledge, comprehension, holistical understanding of reality. We fall into believing things. And when we don't believe spiritual things, then we fall into believing official things, officialdom, institutions, which we confuse with science. We call that science, but it's not science. That is because they have taken advantage of the long run of human history. Human history has been so long, and it has repeated so many times, the same thing repeat themselves so many times, that it creates a kind of a collective amnesia, which creates then a lack of knowledge and has made us fall into a fragmentation, a division of knowledges. We become specialized in one area of knowledge, but we cannot connect with other areas of knowledge. We don't have that holistic understanding. We don't really understand anything, what happens. We just believe in what we're told, be it by spiritual official leaders or be it by scientific leaders, which are not leaders. They're just the people that are in the official institution. So we continue to suffer from everything that colonialism has produced. We're basically colonized. That's the way they steal our energy, our resources. That's the way they steal the resources from our planet, our future. The future of our children is being stolen from us, from them, right in front of our eyes. We're being part of that. We have been turned into barbarians, into ignorance. We believe in the altar of what we call science. That is not science. Now, this comes from the Renaissance in Europe, where, yes, after the Middle Ages, where belief and spirituality was something that was imposed by the sword, something that was created by wars. It was what was behind the wars. It was the war god that became the god. It wasn't God himself. The churches and all the religious institutions, they all became worshipers and defenders and advocates of the war god. And you can even call that the Antichrist. So the Antichrist has dressed as Christ and took over the churches that speak of Christ. How fucked up is that? But that's what happened. Go study. Now, I will say that then the true scientists are those who are understanding, who are wanting to understand what is happening. They kind of pick up on the lies and on the deceit. And so they want to understand themselves. So they set out and they study and they understand what they observe. They are scientists of observation. They understand what they are seeing. They understand what they read. They can tell when something doesn't fit in what they're reading. Now that is what a true scientist is. And that was the kind of scientists that the Renaissance produced. They were transdisciplinary investigators of the world. And that's not what we have today. Anyone that thinks is a scientist today or calls himself a scientist, or the people that go up in the altars of media and institutions and academia, we think they are the bearers of the highest knowledge, and they are not. They can be very good at one specific area, but then not being able to connect other areas. They are actually, in fact, ignorant. They are very bad at being pragmatic and at being empirical. Keep in mind, take into account the fact that all the problems in the world that exist today were created by experts, or what we call experts. So are they really experts? Are they really scientists? They are not. They're just people that have the title, people that we listen to, that of course they handle language very well, they can be very, very smart, but they haven't fragmented themselves. And also they have fallen into beliefs that are not real, things that are not factually true, or that are not even good for us. So that's the difference between knowledge and wisdom. That's why practicing things, experience, is what produces wisdom. The only real wisdom is empirical wisdom, what you can actually tell by living it, by practicing it, by repeating it, by knowing if I do this. So it's like you have a whole bunch of, it's like you're starting into a new area of something you want to do, right? And you go out and you get a whole bunch of information about it. And you're like, wow, this sounds very, very cohesive. This is interesting. This is also very true. And then it's not until you do it that you figure out this wasn't a good recipe, really. This wasn't really that good. This wasn't that true. This wasn't that practical. It seemed like it was before you actually did it yourself. And once you did it, you have now wisdom. You have now achieved wisdom. So this is how the world has become today, a sort of middle age, a dark age, where everything is so full of ignorance, so full of superstition, so full of bad wizardry. So wizardry is really just that. It's just deceit. That's the only real bad wizardry out there is. And the best protection, and I'm going to share with you this for this trecena, the best protection from bad wizardry is understanding, is knowledge, and is culture. So if you have culture, if you have a lineage, if you have understood and practiced and proven things that come from culture, many times things that come from culture come from a tradition. And sometimes people practice traditions. They just repeat something and they don't understand it. You don't want to do that. You want to understand it. You want to challenge it. You want to compare it. You want to go the long way. You want to marry it with something else. You want to check it, cross-reference it with another thing so that you can understand it. If you have that scientific mindset, if you really, really want to understand something, if you really can understand something, then you will understand. You'll be sure. You won't be believing anything. You'll know it. So that's what happens when you put this into practice and you give your culture or a culture continuity. You become the bearer of that culture. You become the continuation of that lineage of knowledge. That's culture, and culture is wisdom. So the Trecena of Ahmak is going to be a test. It's going to test us on this, because Ahmak, the Nawal Ahmak, is a great bearer of wisdom and knowledge. So if you have culture, and if you have knowledge, and if you have a good mind, then you'll be able to follow that and do something very wise, very good for the community in this coming 13 days. That's one of the ways that you can take it. The other way is that you just have fun, enjoy, not care about anything, and you'll see that this Nawal, this Trecena, will open up that possibility for you. If you want to do that, go ahead. It means you need the experience. If you want to be an asshole, if you want to be a dick, go right ahead. It's going to be possible, and you're going to pay for it later. It's going to be really fun for you this time if you choose to be that way. So those are the two paths that you can choose in this Trecena. It's a really, really amazing Trecena, a really, really amazing 13 days, because whatever you do, you're not going to pay for it now. It's whatever you do, you're going to receive the benefits from it later, or you're going to pay for it later, depending on what you do. So that's what you have to know for this coming 13 days. Live according to your wisdom.